Welcome to this episode of It's Called Soccer, the show that brings you the biggest stories, the best guests, and so much more. I'm Rebecca Lowe, host of the Premier League on NBC, and I'm joined by 8-time Premier League winner Gary Neville and 2005 Champions League winner Jamie Carragher. Don't forget, our episodes come out every Wednesday, so do subscribe, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Here's what we've got coming up on today's show. We discuss how it's all gone wrong for Arsenal and whether they can keep hold of star defender William Saliba.
Once you don't win the league or the Champions League, or the bigger clubs start thinking, okay, we can take their player.
Is Mo Salah the best player in the world right now, and does he get into an all-time Premier League 11?
Thierry Henry and Mo Salah go into the front three, and there's one other player to play in there. They go in first.
Gary's face. Are Kevin De Bruyne's best days behind him?
For me, he's number one, and I think we should just celebrate him between now and the end of the season, because I think it's inevitable he'll probably move on.
We chat Madrid, Modric and Mbappé.
It's unplayable sometimes. You just got to hold your hands up and say, they're just too good.
And we break down all the biggest stories from the opening weekend of Major League Soccer with the Give and Go podcast.
Mascherano has a tough debut in the MLS as Miami had to really figure this one out.
All right, chaps, lovely to have us all back together. Jamie and I had to do all the heavy lifting a couple of weeks ago. Gary, don't know where you were last week either. I mean, that's 2 in a row now that you've been on the bench. It was your birthday, though, last week. How was it? What did you get up to?
We went on a camp. And
Camp Neville. we all had hoodies with Camp Neville on.
No,
yeah, so I created a camp for about 35, 40 people, Rebecca, where we went on a 10k walk, pub lunch, 5k walk, cold water swim in a river Ribble, and then we went and did a cacao ceremony. Look it up if you don't know what that means. And then we had a little bit of a party in the evening. Then the day after we did bushcraft, we did archery, paintballing, axe throwing, clay pigeon shooting, sort of like an outdoor event for 2 days whereby people just got used, reconnected with themselves. And then had a few drinks in the evening.
I didn't realise you were so outdoorsy, Gary Neville.
Yeah, I've done it before, you see, the bushcraft thing and the sort of the cacao ceremony and the cold water swim in the river. So I just thought, it'd be really nice to get 35, 40 people, go for walks, socialise with each other. Problem is, you have a 50th. And look, people can do it different ways, do it every way you want. But you end up going to a party, you get bladdered, you don't really end up talking to anybody, you don't remember it the day after, you get ill. And I'm just like, no, I actually want people to socialise and speak to each other and and Cara, you came, so what did you think?
What was it like?
I enjoyed it, and I did all that stuff and still got bladdered and had a bad head in the morning. Yeah, but no, it was good. I enjoyed it. The cacao was an experience I'll certainly take with me for a long time.
I really have no idea what that is, so I'm definitely going to Google that along with all of our listeners. Right, we're going to start with Jamie's face. We're going to start with the Premier League, and where else do we start? Because it was a great weekend, but it was also a bit like, oh, great, now the title's basically done. Now relegation's basically done.
It was the worst weekend ever of football. It couldn't have got any worse.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's except Palace won at Fulham, so that was great. I felt going into Sunday, after what happened with Arsenal and West Ham, Jamie, I'll start with you. It just felt like that was the Liverpool's win at City was one thing, but the Arsenal home defeat to West Ham really for me was what did it. I mean, how do you explain that?
Yeah, it just felt like a pivotal weekend, and that was almost the moment more than, I would say, Liverpool winning at Man City in some ways, because I think, I know it's a shock, I get that, but what we've got to remember, this is only the second game that Arsenal have played when they've had, completely, decimated with their attacking players. In the first game, they took until the 81st or 82nd minute to score a goal away at Leicester. And Leicester are a poor team. We know that from the results they've had this season. And then the West Ham one. It was. I was really intrigued to see how they do against West Ham with no attacking players really on the pitch, and then no one to really bring off the bench. It's not easy, and I've got an element of sympathy a little bit with Arsenal right now, and that I think when you're decimated in the one area, it's not just about having a lot of injuries. They're all in the one position. I don't care how good you are. It's very difficult to win games in the Premier League. And I mean, I said to Gary, and Gary will back me on this one. When Liverpool dropped points at Everton, I think Gary was getting a little bit excited for obvious reasons. And we did a Friday night football game at Brighton. I think it was Brighton-Chelsea we did. And I didn't say it on air, but I said off camera, even before Liverpool then drew at Aston Villa, I think, I felt Liverpool would win the league by 10 or 12 points. And I said that to Gary. And my only reason being was I felt imagine the season it was a 12 or 13 game season, and Liverpool and Arsenal were level points. I think Liverpool are a slightly better team than Arsenal because they're ahead of them in the league, and also they've got no injuries. So I'd expect Liverpool over those 12, 13 games to probably get another 5 or 6 points more than what Arsenal will get because of the situation Arsenal find themselves in. So even when Liverpool dropped points in a couple of games, I'm still really confident that Liverpool would not just win the league, I think they'll win it well. Because Arsenal at the moment, it's tough for them. I actually think Arsenal have done really well to stay in the fight for this long, considering, some of the problems that they've had.
We'll get on to Liverpool in a tick, Gary, but Mikel Arteta today, at time of recording, said title race is not over my dead body. But the problem, as Jamie illustrated, is that they didn't get anybody in. They didn't get anybody in January. Last summer, they bought Calafiori and Marino. Arguably, they could have pulled that money and bought a striker. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure many Arsenal fans disagree that they needed those two players over just one striker. I mean, Arteta arguably has never really bought a striker since he's been there. Do you think he needs to take some heat, Arteta?
Yeah, I think losing Edu earlier on the season was strange. I don't know if that's hampered their recruitment drive or not. But look, they've left themselves woefully short. And where I have little sympathy for them is that they've had 2 title races already. This is a team that's hardened to title races. They've been through the mill. They knew that when they lost Saliba that first season, they knew that they needed to correct that and buy centre-backs and buy defenders to make sure they didn't leave themselves in that same position again. And they did that last year. What they've now done is left themselves short in the centre-forward position. It's almost as if they're always one step behind. And my view is that they are getting what they deserve at this moment in time. And I've got a lot of love for this Arsenal team. I think they've grown immeasurably in this last few years. I think they've become a little bit rigid in the last few months, a little bit sort of set in their ways in terms of how they play with the ball, but also their set pieces. And Liverpool have dropped points in the last 8 games. Pre-City, Liverpool have drawn 4 of the last 8. That is a bad run for Liverpool. That is a bad run for a team that are going for the title. You pick 16 points up out of 24. I'm not saying Arsenal should have won every game, but they did close on Liverpool a little bit. That at the weekend was a must-win game. And I always used to think was unforgivable in a title race is you can lose a title, but if other teams are dropping points and you're not there to put pressure on them and not there on the shoulder, I really think they'll be so regretful of this. And this is a season whereby it was supposed to be Arsenal. If City weren't there, it was supposed to be Arsenal. At the start of the season, Carragher said that City would win the league. I said Arsenal would win the league. I thought at some point City have to drop off. I didn't think they'd drop off as they have. But I always thought that if City didn't win the league, it would be Arsenal. And you're gambling a little bit on it not being City. And then Liverpool all of a sudden under Slot have emerged. I take what Arteta's saying. There's a long way to go yet. 12 games is a long way to go. But Liverpool have 7 games at home. Liverpool have gone into that change room on Sunday after that game feeling absolutely unbreakable. I honestly feel like they'll be impossible to stop now because of the confidence of Saturday first and then Sunday, what they did at City, I think is massive.
Of course, we're recording on a Tuesday before the midweek game, so anybody listening to this, it might be 10 games left for Liverpool and 11 now for Arsenal, so there is that midweek fixture list. Do you think, Jamie, this is a different kind of pain this season for Arsenal? Because the last 2, they came so close to City, but then with what Gary's just said about how this season has kind of evolved, it just feels like a regretful kind of pain, which arguably is the worst kind.
This will be the worst feeling for them, and this will see Arsenal supporters turning a little bit on whether it's the manager or the people above him. I think it'd probably be more the people above him. Not just in terms of that they don't think that they're good at the job or they want Arteta sacked. I don't mean that. But I think there'll be a frustration there and an anger with the team and the club that wasn't there for the last 2 seasons. And that's because they could accept they were building going forward. They're up against Man City. It's Pep Guardiola. It's basically Man City with all their money. They can buy who they want. You can, Pep's the best manager in the world. You can accept losing to them, and you can't accept. You've almost got no excuse because it's Liverpool. Because Liverpool are a similar sort of club to Arsenal, both trying to chase Man City. Maybe don't quite have the funds they have, or have to maybe pay the players' wages that they do. So the frustration is, will it be that it's Liverpool? And I think once you've come second 3 times, which it looks like Arsenal will do, there's nowhere else to go. Anything, if they finish third next season, it feels like a disaster. So they're at a moment in time right now where we were at as a club at times, a couple of times when I was a player for Liverpool, where you don't quite sort of get there, and the only next step is to win the league. And if you don't, it feels like everything falls apart, and it's probably getting to that stage with Arsenal.
I think they've made a mess of it. Yeah, well, not getting a striker in has been something that Arsenal fans have seen, let alone people in the media and beyond. Arsenal fans know their team really well, and they know they needed a striker. But I just expected them to be there, expected that they would deliver, that their experience in the last 2 years take you towards a title. You think about how Klopp built towards winning a title. You think about how other teams have over the years built towards winning a title. And it seemed like it was perfect for them. It's difficult to explain this one. I think at the hierarchy at Arsenal, in the recruitment department, in the coaching department, to not furnish themselves with a centre forward, even in January, when I think they were put off by signing a forward in January because of maybe doing the business that they did for Raheem Sterling. Maybe because they thought, well, hang on, we can't just keep accumulating players. There was no one there that worked for them. But they did need a centre forward of any kind. They did need a centre forward to fill that space. It was obvious that this could happen. I'm struggling with it a little bit. I do believe that they've not covered themselves in glory on and off the pitch to be where they are, 11 points behind Liverpool.
I've got a little bit of sympathy for them in that when we keep saying they need a striker, everybody in the Premier League needs a striker. Man United need a striker, Liverpool need a striker, Arsenal need a striker, we'd say Chelsea need a striker. There is a dearth of quality strikers out there anywhere in the world. Now, I've said this before, in the Premier League, there's probably only Man City who I can think of, like the real sort of elite top clubs who are probably happy with their striker right now. You know, the clubs who think they should be in the Champions League or maybe
Newcastle, maybe
challenging for the Premier League. And yeah, but they're not a team you associate with winning the league, or if they get in the Champions League, it's a big surprise, But I think of the way Havertz played last season, the second half of last season. If that Arsenal was playing this season, they'd have a great chance of winning the league, or I think they'd be neck and neck with Liverpool. And sometimes it's about timing, and they were just up against, in the 2 years they've had the title challenge, they were up against the treble-winning City team in the first season, I think. And last season, you're still up against, Pep Guardiola, one of the greatest teams of all time, winning the league 4 times in a row. And they've dropped off, as City have dropped off. And sometimes it's just a little bit of bad luck. But what I'm trying to say is I could understand in the summer, who is this striker when you've got Havertz? So yes, you want a striker who scores maybe another 10, 15 goals a season. But Havertz isn't in the team for that. He gives you so much more. So this striker might be a great goal scorer, but you might lose other things. You're pressing, you hold up play, set pieces. So I don't think it's as easy as it sounds about should just go and bought a striker. I don't know who this striker is because the Premier League teams keep buying strikers and none of them are good enough.
Jamie, just one last question on Arsenal. You mentioned that at times at Liverpool you had the similar feeling. How mentally draining is that? Forget physical. How mentally draining going into another season on the back of 3 runners-up?
There is one player, and I'm not, people will be thinking I'm trying to cause a problem with Arsenal here, but I'm not. But I think when you're at a club, and this again happened to us at Liverpool, once you don't win the league or the Champions League, other bigger clubs start thinking, okay, we can take their player. So for us, it was Alonso, Mascherano and Torres. And then that team that had been built by Rafa Benitez was just players were just leaving left, right and centre. And I do look at Saliba, and I do look at him and think, for me, he looks like a Real Madrid player. I can imagine him in a Real Madrid kit. He's like, you look at some of the best centre-backs out there. The longer your club doesn't go with winning, competing, you might say, we're competing for trophy, but when you're as good as someone like him and some of the players that we had in our team, like Mascherano goes to the great Barcelona team, Alonso goes and wins the Champions League with Real Madrid. It didn't happen for Torres. He made the wrong choice at Chelsea, but that's my point. The longer you go without winning, people start looking at your players and thinking, okay, we're going to take them. And the players are receptive to it because, it's a short career. They want to be playing in the Champions League final. They want to be winning. And listen, that might happen for Arsenal this season, but that's a problem that they'll have going forward if they don't start winning trophies very quickly.
Gary, Liverpool, the game was so interesting at Manchester City because you've talked about it before, the way that Arne Slot plays all different types of football, right? Even within one game, as we saw. Then on Sunday, he had 2 number 10s. It was like, what's happening here? We did a whole thing about their shape. It was so interesting. How has Arne Slot worked out the Premier League so quickly, Gary?
I mean, it's testament to him. Absolutely incredible transition from Jurgen Klopp, who's one of the greatest managers the Premier League's had. And I thought there would be just a natural... I thought there'd just be a natural sort of drop off for Liverpool. I just thought the players who've listened to that same voice, that inspirational voice for so many years, and then having someone else come in, that he wouldn't be able to sort of make it sort of happen for them. But what he's done from day one is just bring composure. Obviously, he's won games. I said it earlier on in the season, there was a game, I can't remember which game it was, where I thought that they played 3 or 4 different styles within a certain half or within a certain game. And that's what I like most about this Liverpool team, to be honest with you, because we've been conditioned for years now to think you have to have this principle and this value and this philosophy of playing, you must stick to it. And then I see them playing, Robertson lumps one over the top for a penalty at Bournemouth. I see Van Dijk playing sort of 60-yard direct passes in behind. I see Trent Alexander-Arnold playing long passes in behind for Salah from deep. And I think, that's how football should be played. And then I see them in the first half, they played from the keeper out in the right-hand corner near where the Liverpool fans were, right the way up the other end of the pitch. They cut through City from one end to the other, and it was one of the best passing moves you'll ever see. It could have been a goal. And then you see them sit behind the ball for 10 minutes and not touch the ball and think, they're just consuming and handling pressure. And then they play counter-attack. They mucked in, they defended well, they were compact, they played all different styles of play. And I resonated so much with that first half, Rebecca, because they got really a real testing in that first 10 minutes. City played really well and they had to come through it. Then they just got a goal from a set piece. And I thought, right, they got 1-0 in front. And then before the second goal came, you could smell it. They just got comfortable and control after about 30, 35 minutes. And when I think back to the perfect big game away wins late on in the season that sometimes happened for us, that's how it happened. You were never in control. You didn't have possession. You felt like you were in control in a different way through not having possession, just through being so hard to beat. And that performance will not go down in the sort of history books as being the best game of football ever. But it really hit home to me that was a title-winning performance because it was many different things in one.
Jamie, 2 weeks ago on this show, you said something really interesting. You said that in the city of Liverpool, where of course you live, the feeling hadn't yet really started. That kind of, we're going to win the league, that sort of feeling amongst the fans and the people in the city. Now, as we sit here on this Tuesday morning and they're 11 clear with 11 to play, has that started?
Yeah, I think so. I think before that, it wasn't that Liverpool fans didn't think they were going to win the league. It was just like this. It almost felt like probably what it was like for Gary at Man United at certain times. We're only in February. We're almost used to this now. This has been going on for 4 or 5 years where we get involved in this title race. And I always remember the first one with Man City. It felt like every game everyone was on edge, but I don't really feel that now. I think there'll be a really good atmosphere against Newcastle at home. Would have been an evening game on the back of that big win at City, because I think for the supporters and the scenes at Manchester City, I think it just felt this is ours now. That's the game they look back on maybe when the league title was won, if you like. I know there's still a long way to go, but I think now the atmosphere will start growing and growing at Anfield. As we've said, there's 7 games at Anfield now, and I think that buzz will start to really kick in. But I think, we've got the international break to come, and I always feel the running naturally almost comes after that. Doesn't matter how many games are left, it's just like get that international break out the way, and then it really kicks on from there. And yeah, I think this will start to build now, with excitement between now and the end of the season.
Jamie, some of the new fans to the Premier League in America maybe don't realise they'll know the rivalry between Liverpool and United, but in terms of the equaling of league titles that could happen this season, if Liverpool get to 20, which will be the same as Manchester United, as Gary shakes his head in absolute despair. He never thought he'd see the day, and certainly didn't think you'd see the day so quickly. Yeah, for you though, Jamie, far from horrific, explain the importance of the 20 to 20.
I never felt that we would ever get close to Manchester United in terms of the Premier League. You know, we're talking about the competition, we've still only won once. I know it's the first division, but in terms of actually in the Premier League, if we think Liverpool are going to win, it's still only twice in the Premier League. And to think we'd have a chance sort of next season and certainly be in a better position to go in and go above Manchester United. And that's why, I'll be honest with you, I get a lot of stick on social media for lots of different reasons. But some of that is people think I'm a spokesperson for FSG. I've got no relationship whatsoever with anyone at Liverpool Football Club, because because of the job I do, because at times I might have to be critical. But what they've done, and that's why I'm not critical of them, what they've done to put us in a position as a football club to level with Manchester United. And actually, I was in the gym this morning talking to a few of the lads who got the game. And what I'm really excited for is that I think start of next season, I think will be the first time I will ever predict Liverpool to win the league at the start of a season, because I really do believe next season they'll win the league again. And the reason I say that is Arne Slot will know that squad and team and players so much more than he did basically 12 months ago. And he also knows the deficiencies in the squad. He hasn't bought a proper player yet. So I'm almost excited thinking, this guy's probably going to look at that team and thinking, this is a team that's won the league. It's only lost one game all season. And I think I can improve, not just by bringing players in and they can fill in, just going, right, bang, 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 3 players straight in the starting 11. That's even before I had a little bit around the squad. And that's what excites me. So yes, great to get level with Manchester United, which we think will happen. But I think Liverpool have got a real opportunity in the summer with, what's happened with City. It's a big drop off. I still think City will come back next season. But, questions about Arsenal, questions about everybody who doesn't win the league. But I think Liverpool are in a really strong position to try and kick on over the next couple of years under Slot. And that excites me as much as anything, rather than going level with United. I think there's a real opportunity for Liverpool to go above Manchester United in league titles over the next few years.
I think there's a massive big caveat on that. If Van Dijk leaves and Salah leaves, I honestly do believe that you're not talking like that at the start of next season, because, to be fair, the voids that those two bring are massive. Now, if they stay, I actually agree with Carragher. They could be in a great position to add 2 or 3 players to that squad. But if Van Dijk and Salah both leave, and I think even if Van Dijk left, that would be a huge hole to fill that.
I just can't see those 2 players not in a red shirt next season. I can't see any situation where they're not. I don't know what anybody gains from it. It's a nightmare for Liverpool if they're not there for what you've just said, Gary. You're spot on. Because we're talking about two of the greatest players of all time for Liverpool. There's no doubt about that. They're probably in the 2 of them are probably in the top 5 or 6 players who ever played for the club. Now, you're playing for one of the greatest clubs in world football. You've got a chance of the Champions League. You're playing at Anfield. It's probably one of the greatest stadiums you can play in, atmosphere-wise. And I don't know where they go. Then let's say Virgil van Dijk went to Real Madrid. A club's the way they're run now. Are they going to be paying someone who's 33, 34, 400 grand a week or something? I don't know. I think the way clubs are run now, they always want to go for the younger model. I just think it almost makes sense for everybody that these players are at Liverpool next season. So that's why I'm really confident, because I just can't imagine they're all in a room, maybe in the international break or at the end of the season, whenever, and they don't thrash something out, because no one gains anything from them not being there next season.
Gary, is Mo Salah best player in the world right now for you?
I think there's no doubt he's the best player in the Premier League at this moment in time. I think he probably is the best player in the world at this moment in time. Honestly, I don't know what's happened to him, Cara, and you watch him a lot more than I do. But I've watched a lot of Mo Salah. I've got a lot of Liverpool games under my belt over this last 7 or 8 years. But when Alisson lumps those balls up to him in the air, drives them to him, and he's pinning Guardiola, who's 6'3", holding him off, bringing it down. He's been doing it all season. Has he always been doing that, and I've just been missing it, or has he just started doing that in the last 6 months? Like he's almost like He's like a 6'3", 1980 centre forward who's pinning someone and holding. What is that all about? I can't believe it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he's always had that. There's been times when but I think everything just seems to have come together.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's really funny, you know, because when you speak to Liverpool's supporters in the past, and there's always this debate about Salah, is he a great player? And sometimes there's a lot of Liverpool fans who I speak to when I'm going to the gym or having some food, and they'll go, but is he a great player? And sometimes I'm a little bit mystified by that, I must say, and we get into a little debate. But listen, these are guys who've watched Liverpool for sort of 20, 30 years, who've seen some great players, and you know,
what
they all
is it
judge
about
players
them, Jamie,
differently.
that they say is not great?
Yeah.
No, his numbers are off the scale, but sometimes, you know, when you talk about like a goal scorer of someone's at the sort of degree, they add more to the game. But I feel like this season, especially more than any other, it's not just about the numbers. He always gets 30 goals. It's about sort of like everything. Gary's talking about holding the ball. I mean, how many times he's played that ball to the back post with the outside of his left foot? He actually tried it at City in the first half, and someone wasn't at the back post, probably because Gakpo wasn't playing, because more often than not, Gakpo puts that in at the far post. But there's almost this feeling, and this arrogance is the wrong word, but you know when someone knows they're the best player?
Yeah.
Whether they're in the school team as a kid, amateur football team, or you're playing, you know, for Liverpool. Now, he's always been Liverpool's best player in terms of, you know, getting the goals and the numbers. But it's almost like he's like strutting around like he's Zidane or someone. You know that feeling when you see someone just like walking around a pitch, he's holding people off. He's just at his absolute peak. And he's probably one of those players who, because he looks after himself so well, this idea that he's 32, 33 is just like, he's going to be a Ronaldo. You know, this guy needs to be playing at the highest level of football for as long as possible, because he's an absolute joy to watch.
So I have a quick question for both of you. Jamie, I'll start with you. We also had this debate at the weekend. I asked the two Robbies, would you have Mo Salah in your all-time Premier League starting 11? Would you have him in the 11? Would you have him on the bench? Or would he not make the cut? Robbie Earl said he'd be on the bench.
Oh,
Robbie Mustoe said he starts.
No chance.
Where do you stand, Jamie?
He 100% starts.
Okay.
I mean,
okay, well,
he starts. I mean, the only player who I think right now, at the end of this season, Mo Salah is going to get Player of the Year. He's going to be the Player of the Year. We all agree on that. No player in the history, I think, of English football has ever won the PFA Player of the Year award 3 times. He's going to win it for the 3rd time. It's never been done before. So we're talking about an absolute legend of our game, not just Premier League of all time. Now, Premier League 11, Thierry Henry and Mo Salah go into the front 3, and there's one other player to play in there. They go in first. I've said this before. Salah has done more, I think, is better in the Premier League than what Ronaldo was. Ronaldo was amazing at Real Madrid,
yeah, of course.
But I think Salah's been a better Premier League player than Ronaldo, so that's why he goes in alongside Thierry
And that's
Henry.
fair. That's what I think we have to judge it on their time in the Premier League. So the two Robbies had Shearer and Henry as absolute shoo-ins, and then Robbie Mustoe had Salah, and I think Earl went for Bergkamp, but. Gary, you putting him in starting or on the bench?
Shearer didn't win enough trophies.
I find it difficult when look, at the end of the day, I think in a moment like this, where you're conscious that I think
it's called recency bias.
No, it's not called recency bias. It's called basically a guy called Cristiano Ronaldo. It's a guy called Alan Shearer. It's a guy called Thierry Henry. It's a guy called Wayne Rooney. And to be fair, those were decent players, Cara. And I can look at it and think that Mo Salah is absolutely in that class. But if I'm looking at a team of 4-4-2 or 4-3-3, and I'm thinking Cristiano Ronaldo, Thierry Henry, Alan Shearer, Rooney, who are the best players that I've played with up front. Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the greatest players that's ever played the game and ever lived, and he played in the Premier League for 5-6 years. And to be honest with you, that's a long enough sample of evidence to suggest that I think he deserves to be in that mix. So I don't think it's a certain that he would be in the team, but he should be definitely in that conversation amongst those players I've just mentioned.
Okay. Well, what would your front 3 be?
Well, Alan Shearer is the greatest goal scorer in Premier League history. I think Thierry Henry would be to the left, and I think I'd have Cristiano Ronaldo to the right.
Well, Thierry Henry didn't play on the left. He played centre forward, so you'd have to pick him or Henry.
Right, okay. Sorry, I didn't realise that I didn't realise that you could sort of.
I like doing these things properly. I don't like this fudge stuff where you just get people in the team. Is this what you did at Valencia?
Oh my goodness gracious.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll leave that there. Maybe we'll revisit that debate at another time. But there is a player who would probably be in the discussion for all-time Premier League team, and that is Kevin De Bruyne.
Sorry, can I just finish off on that?
Yeah.
Can I just finish up?
Go.
Sorry, it's Rebecca. Cristiano Ronaldo played right wing quite a lot of times for Manchester United in front of me, and Alan Shearer or Thierry Henry could be up front, but that would mean then someone would need to be on the left. So my point is, even if I was picking a team that was balanced, as Cara wants me to do, I'd still could pick Cristiano Ronaldo on the right and Thierry Henry and Wayne Rooney and Alan Shearer in those other positions. Thank you. Sorry, Rebecca.
No, please, no. That's
6 forwards.
I know that is a lot. Rooney and Shearer and Henry and Ronaldo.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying you can't dismiss these players.
Oh, okay. I just want to pick up your brains a little bit on Kevin De Bruyne, because he's not having a great time of it, is he? He's 33 years of age, which is amazingly only 1 year older than Mo Salah, and it feels like his drop off a cliff has been quite stark. There are links with him to Major League Soccer, but his contract runs out at the end of the season, and Pep Guardiola does not seem to be making any noises that he is carrying on. Do you think his days are numbered, Gary Neville?
Look, I thought something's been wrong with it all season. It felt like something's just not being right, and I don't know what it is. Obviously, he's carried an injury, and then he's not got back to quite his top fitness levels. But it's bizarre. There's a disconnect. There's something that's just not happening. Fitness meets lack of form, meets lack of confidence in the team, meets. It just looks like the love has fallen off out of his game a little bit. And it just, to me, this is probably the player that we have said is the greatest player in the Premier League in the last 5 years. I know we've just talked about Mo Salah, but no one would argue that Kevin De Bruyne has been the man for the last 4 or 5 seasons in the Premier League. And I don't know what's happened. I mean, City don't like the idea of saying that there is a disconnect, that something's not quite right, but it doesn't feel right. And sometimes if it doesn't feel right and it looks not right, it's usually not right.
Jay?
To be honest, Rebecca, I've seen a little bit in the press this morning about Kevin De Bruyne, a bit like, not criticising, but saying, this is the end for him. But I think the world we live in now is completely different to 20, 30 years ago. And we almost a little bit critical of players now when they come to the end. Oh, he's not the same player. But it's like, he's 33. It's normal. He's been one of the greatest players we've ever seen in the Premier League. And his time's just coming to an end. And I wouldn't even be critical. Last season, it's really interesting that he missed the first game of last season, I think, was at Burnley, a Friday night football. I think me and you did, Gary. And he come off injured in the first game and he didn't play for 5 months. So that was the start then, you're thinking, okay, he's picking up injuries, he's getting older. The second half of the season, would you believe I actually picked him in my team of the year? I know we were just talking about picking teams. And I got laughed at a little bit. But would you believe in the second half of last season, he still had the best rate of anybody in the Premier League of assists in sort of how many minutes he'd been on the pitch. He's that good. For me, he's Manchester City's greatest ever player. Injuries are just catching up with him. He's not being helped by City this season because City aren't great, and it's always harder to play well in a team when the rest of the team are not playing well. If it was a normal City season, he could be coming on sub and setting up goals, getting the odd goals, starting here and there. But for me, I think alongside him and Steven Gerrard, for me, when I think of attacking midfield players in the Premier League, for me, they're the two to the greatest. I think he's probably City's greatest player, and they've had some greats over the last 10, 15 years. Company, David Silva, Yaya Toure, Aguero, some of the players now. For me, he's number one, and I think we should just celebrate him between now and the end of the season, because I think it's inevitable he'll probably move on and we're MLS or Saudi.
But Cara, I don't get why we're talking about a 33-year-old. We talk about Salah in one breath, we're talking about De Bruyne in the next breath, we're talking about players that I played with who were 32, 33. I think players when they're 32, 33 sometimes struggle if they're completely reliant upon their pace and they've played a certain way. Kevin De Bruyne has never been completely reliant upon his pace. He's always been reliant upon basically being in the right positions. He has got a little bit of an acceleration, a bit of power, but mainly it's been his quality of delivery. So I'm looking at Kevin De Bruyne and thinking, you should be fine, even if you're not quite right. You could play till you're 36, 37 in a midfield that's got energy and legs around you, because you're that type of player that still got the quality. And particularly as the modern player, and now and how they look after themselves. I don't know why we're talking, or why we would think that Mo Salah can play on for another 4 or 5 years, and he relies upon a bit more pace than Kevin De Bruyne, and De Bruyne's all of a sudden should celebrate him because he's nearly finished. I don't get that. I'm not quite sure it's as simple as that. I don't know.
Well, listen, everybody's different. Mo Salah doesn't get injured. That's a testament to him. I just think sometimes, when he's been out for a long period of time, Kevin De Bruyne, 5 months, a lot of the time this season, it's obviously his body's probably breaking down on him the way it hasn't done in the past. And then when he's coming back, he's not fully fit. It's just, listen, we've been there as players, haven't we? You get to a certain age and everyone's different when they drop off. I always thought, I agree with you to a certain extent, I always thought the natural progression for De Bruyne would be almost to be like a Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, play deeper.
Yeah, playing a little bit deeper. He doesn't play that role. Pep doesn't seem to play in there. But I always felt he had the ability to almost be that sort of, player in midfield who could just run the game.
Why can't he be a Modric or a Scholes or a Pirlo or a player that... We've seen these players play for number 10s at part of their career and go back and be absolutely unbelievable into the sort of late 30s. That's Kevin De Bruyne. Why is that not happening? I don't understand it.
Listen, and you look at him as a personality and a character. When things aren't going well, or his team aren't winning, he's a you can feel it. You can see it when he's playing for Belgium. You can see what he gets het up. He gets frustrated. So I think if he's not at his best and City aren't at his best, I don't think he's the type of guy who'll think. I think he'd probably want to call it a day, maybe walk away and do something different. But as I said, I'm going to really celebrate him between now and the end of the season. I think he's been one of the greatest we've seen.
Let's just touch on Real Madrid. Gary talked about their forward line being just on another level, and you were there for the game against Manchester City. And Mbappé, that we talked about Mbappé back in October, and I think, Jamie, you said maybe they didn't need him when they've got Vinny Jr. already, but they have seemed to have worked out, haven't they, how to get them all absolutely clicking. How have they done it?
Yeah, it was really interesting in the first leg away at Manchester City, because, I don't watch Real Madrid every week, but you sort of see the numbers Mbappe's getting now in terms of his goals. I think he's got over 30 goals now, and there's all this talk at the start of the season that it wasn't quite working. Certainly when we watched him in the Champions League games, which is normal for Real Madrid actually, didn't look that convincing in the group stage, went to Anfield and lost 2-0. And that was the night that Vinicius Jr. wasn't playing. It was this big build-up of Mbappe's in his best position now on the left, and young Conor Bradley, had him in his pocket, put that great tackle in. But in the first leg, both of them played up front in a 4-4-2 with Jude Bellingham to the left. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, because Mbappé can still go almost play that on re-roll, if you like, still getting to the left. But when I watched them in the second leg, there was still an element of that, but it almost looked a little bit like Junior was on the left. And I don't know if it was the way City played, but City played really high. And it allowed sort of Mbappé to use his pace and make runs in behind. And I think City played into the hands to a certain extent, really, because it'd be interesting to see, because I think Mbappé would find it difficult. He doesn't feel like he's getting involved in the game if another team's deep behind the ball. He can't quite get the touches that he wants and to get involved in the game. But Gary said before about them looking like a different level. I felt that in the first leg. Even when City went in front with Haaland, there was things happening in the first half that it was that fast. The best way to describe it is, me and him have played in games in Europe where you come in at half-time or full-time and you just give each other a look. And, as players, and you think, what's going on? That was like, whoa, that was like... And you know what? That's good. That's what football should be. It should be about, someone's trying to raise your game, or you're playing against, and you've got to then push on and get better. Or, Gary always talked about the Juventus teams, and we had to move up a level to win the European Cup. I remember playing against Barcelona at Anfield one night, and Clive and Rivaldo up front, and you just, for days after it, you can't get things out of your head, and you're thinking, I'm so far away from that level, but you get there, and they drop back a little bit, you improve a little bit, and you fight your way there. That's part of the game. And there was things happening in that first half at a pace that I think the City players will have all come in, even though they've won trebles and European Cups and 4 in a row, that you just go, oh, what was that? Yeah. That was too fast, that was too quick. And I thought that was very ominous for the rest of the tournament, not just for City, because when I was watching that first half, I thought City aren't getting through here. But I thought even for Liverpool, you've beat them early on the season. You're thinking, oh, this is a different Real Madrid second half of the season. So for me, watching Real Madrid over the two legs, I'd say for me now, they're the favourites to win the Champions League.
We're talking about players of a certain age, and Real Madrid's Luka Modric played on Sunday against Girona because Jude Bellingham was banned, of course, he was suspended. And they won 2-0, and he scored the most ridiculous goal, an incredible volley. He's 39 years of age, Gary Neville. I mean, that is now we're talking about, that has to be a genetic situation there. You can't do that at 39, and it's unbelievable.
I actually think it's what a great player should do at the end of their career. I know that sometimes great players get to the end of their career at a club and they think they can't handle being sub, so they then go and play somewhere else. I always thought, to be fair, that I always felt I got it right at United, where I'm better off playing 25, 30 games a year in the last couple of years at United, which is what I did. I mean, not in the last season, I only played a few, but in the seasons before that, I'm better off doing that alongside good players than going playing 40 games somewhere else and, to be fair, exposing myself at 34, 35. And I think what Modric is doing, the way he plays, saying that about De Bruyne before, De Bruyne should be able to play in a top team. So he's 35, 36, 37, 38 because of his quality. And that's what Modric is doing. He's absolutely incredible. He's fit as a fiddle. He understands the game. There's always a point in a season where you need someone to come on and take the sting out of a game or provide a bit of a wise head that can get control of it, because the other ones in there, Tchouaméni and Camavinga, the others, they've got loads of energy and they're brilliant and that's fantastic, but sometimes you just need someone just to get in there and sort of just give comfort to everybody, like a safety net really, and a comfort blanket for younger players that just maybe aren't quite at the level that he's been at. So no, I think it's brilliant and it's a great end to his career. I do want to point out that Haaland, Jamie did say a few years ago that Haaland had chosen the wrong club at City and he won the treble. And then earlier on in the season, he did say that Real Madrid believed they signed the best player in the world, but they already had the best player in the world and they've chosen the wrong club in Mbappé. Just wanted to point that out, by the way, that I just remembered that as he was speaking.
You just come in your ear there.
No, I've just remembered it because I remember it's on this podcast. I was thinking, you've just called out Haaland and Mbappé in the last few years, but what Jamie said about that different level, honestly, some of the attacking play that you see from Vinicius Jr., from Bellingham, from Mbappe, from Rodrigo, honestly, it's unplayable. It's unplayable sometimes. You just got to hold your hands up and say, they're just too good.
You know when I was in the Bernabeu, I've always been I think when you come from England as a young kid, when you were a kid, you'd always ask your mum or dad for a Barcelona or Real Madrid kit. It was always they were the glamour clubs, if you like. And I was always a Barcelona kit as a kid because Gary Lineker went there from Everton in the mid-80s. So Barcelona was always the thing that you wanted that kit. And it's funny that when I speak to the Spanish lads or when I was playing at Liverpool, you could always feel I always saw Real Madrid as the club in Spain. That was the club. And when I was stood in the stadium, even though I'd played there before, when I was stood there the other night and they've got the new stadium done and the roof, and I was just thinking, this is the pinnacle. This is like, I was almost thinking, a little tinge of me was thinking, I can understand maybe where Trent's coming from if he comes here. And it was like a little bit of that when you're thinking, oh no. I'm thinking, I hope he hasn't seen this new roof. He hasn't seen this thing. But it was like, and the steepness of the stadium. It's just like, I mean, we all say every time we go to Tottenham's the stadium's one of the best in the world. But Real Madrid Stadium is the best in the world. It is. The way they've done it, the way it looks outside, coming inside. It's just, it feels special when you're on the side of the pitch.
All right, chaps, we're going to turn our attention to this side of the pond. And on last week's It's Called Soccer MLS Preview Special, we were joined by Reynoso and Soltero from the Give and Go podcast to discuss all of their hot takes. And they had a few, as well as some predictions for the upcoming campaign, which, by the way, has just started. So here they are once again to bring us up to date with what happened on the opening weekend for Major League Soccer.
Hello, welcome to the Give and Go's coverage of the MLS. We are back with It's Called Soccer. I'm your coach Reynoso here with my boy
Soltero. What's up, y'all?
And we have some incredible games to cover that just happened over the weekend in the MLS. And let's just start right away with a team that we highlighted would have a troubling season to start, LA Galaxy loses at home to San Diego FC, the newcomers of the MLS.
In San Diego FC's first competitive match ever, it was the Dane, Anders Dreyer, at the double, getting 2 goals in the second half. Please go check out that second goal he scored, an absolute worldie. But there were some really good performances overall from San Diego. It wasn't just Dreyer. You had Chucky Lozano getting a really good assist on that first goal, taking advantage of some pretty poor build-up passing from the back. And Luka de la Torre, the San Diego native, absolutely dominating the midfield today. It was a very good performance from San Diego, and for LA, you know, this is going to be a tough start to the season. No Ricky Pooch, no Joseph Paintsel, he's out for a couple of months. Brugman, the MLS Cup final MVP, he's gone. He's in Nashville right now. Jovic is in Sporting Kansas City. This is not the same team that played 80 days ago in the MLS Cup final, and I do think there's going to be a slow start for them to start the season.
Inter Miami with a very notable tie 2-2 at home in a game where they ultimately went down 2-1, but were saved by an incredible Lionel Messi assist. And literally the last minute of the game, finds a beautiful ball through to Segovia, who then puts a nice finish on it to make it 2-2 and salvages a point here for Inter Miami, a team that we mentioned is in title contention right now, starting the season off with a very feisty game against New York City FC.
Things got very nervy in this match. Pretty early on in that first half, Aviles gets caught by Costa Rican striker Alonso Martinez, has to take him down, and in that process gets a red card brandished. And from that moment on, Mascherano has a tough debut in the MLS as Miami had to really figure this one out. Ultimately, I'd say it's a good result considering that New York completely flipped this game and actually took a 2-1 lead. But with Messi on the pitch, anything's always possible. What a lovely assist for Segovia. And for Segovia, too, who has a lot to prove this season alongside Messi, gets a really good goal. Yeah. Ultimately, a very good point for Inter Miami.
Yeah, and I don't want to forget to mention Messi's first assist in this game as well was insane, dude. He's just cooking right now. 2 assists in this match. We had other games here that really stood out to me, and in my opinion, I think Atlanta United is one that I want to highlight because I mentioned them last week on this show as a dark horse to make a deep run to the MLS Cup this year, and they're starting off on fire with Emmanuel Lat, the record-breaking signing, getting 2 goals in this game, almost getting a hat trick, and then a third game-winning goal behind Mosquera to give them the 3-2 victory over Montreal at home.
And there was another great MLS debut, but in Cincinnati, as FC Cincinnati hosted MLS Cup runners-up New York Red Bulls, with Kevin Danke, the Togolese striker, getting on the scoreboard, showing a sign of things to come. Had an excellent game, not just in front of goal, but in build-up play as well. And of course, new teammate alongside him, Brazilian playmaker Evander, really showing his class on the ball. Cincinnati have a very good team this year. And once Sergio Santos comes back into this offensive line, Cincinnati's going to have one of the best offenses right alongside Inter Miami. This was a great start for Cincinnati as they hope to push for MLS title contention this season.
Already, I would say we've had a fantastic start to the MLS season, and I'm just excited to see more games, man, because I think an action-packed season awaits us all.
Inter Miami 2-2 with New York City FC. Inter Miami's new manager, Javier Mascherano, who of course you know well. You've mentioned him on the pod already today, Jamie. Did you see him, first of all, as a player when you played with him that would go on to do this as a manager?
Yeah, he was definitely thinking about the game, but I think speaking to Rafa Benitez about him was probably more interesting in that when we signed him, the position he plays for Argentina is probably just behind their number 10. And it's called the number 5 position. They don't necessarily always wear the number 5, but we'd probably class that as, a holding midfield player in England probably wears number 4 or number 6. But in Argentina, it was a really big thing to be, like Redondo was that role, Mascherano, they played for so long in that role. And when Benitez became the manager, he loved Mascherano even before he'd come. Remember him talking about him when he got him in before he'd even played a game. It was like his son type of thing, and he was always probably destined to stay into the game. I think he managed the under-20s or under-21s for Argentina. Played for Barcelona in a completely different position at centre-back. And yeah, I think it was natural. He was probably one of the ones in the dressing room, probably along with Alonso. And probably a lot of people in the dressing room probably would have said me in one of those coaching roles.
But what happened?
No. I made the right decision. Can you imagine
He
me on the
bottled
touchline?
it. He bottled it, Rebecca.
Yeah.
You'd never be on the touchline.
I
I feel like you'd be in the stands every week.
I do imagine myself as a manager and thinking what I would wear. I mean, remember Gary? He used to change outfit every week. I think you've got to stick with your outfit.
What, are you a suit manager or a tracksuit?
No. I know Klopp wore the tracksuit. I, for me, think you've got to look smart on the side of the pitch. I like the way managers now have gone away from the shirt and tie, but almost still look... Basically, the way I look for Monday Night Football. I think I'd go with that on the side of the pitch. I mean... How I would react, I think I made the best decision I've ever made, not going into management. I think in some ways I'm too passionate about football, and I think it could boil over. We're talking about Mascherano, but I saw the scenes of Lionel Messi, and it just shows you, football gets to the best of us, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. He got a couple of assists in the 2-2 against New York City, but he was not happy with the ref. He decided to make his feelings clear, and he was not happy with the assistant coach either of NYCFC, and put his hand on his back. And some people are saying that's just an Argentinian show of love, and others are saying no, he sort of squeezed the neck, and the assistant manager wasn't very happy. Either way, he definitely still cares. That is for certain. Gary went to see Phil a couple of weeks ago when they were at the pre-season in Palm Springs, which was lovely. Everyone was happy. It's pre-season. That's what happens. Opening game at home to Vancouver, and our viewers and listeners will remember that that's how they were knocked out of the playoffs at the end of last season. They lost to Vancouver at home by 5-0. Phil talked really well in last week's episode, if anyone hasn't seen it, about that pain and just how tough that was to finish the season like that. Then they have to play them the opening day at home again. You watched it. It was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, they're a decent team, Vancouver. That's the first thing to say. But he had the man sent off after, I don't know, about 10, 12 minutes, very early on in the game. And from that moment on, they always look dangerous. Bad start. But I think if you're going to get them out of the way early, that's the best time to do it. I mean, it's never ideal losing your first game at home because there's such an excitement builds up around the season starting. The fans come. But when you get a player sent off so early, it's just an absolute killer, a proper killer. It was a bad one, but hopefully they'll recover.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And he was very positive. Obviously, like you said, it's just the opening game. But he was very positive talking to me a couple of weeks ago about a freshness around the squad, and he's brought some new faces in. So fingers crossed things get better there. So chaps, apparently across the world at the moment, Major League Soccer, which now is on Apple and it's global, people are trying to pick a team if they haven't already got one, okay? And there is an app which is basically like a random generator. You kind of spin a wheel, and then whatever team you get, that is it. That is your team. I don't know if that's your team forever or just for the season, but let's just do it for the season. I've gone first. I already span the wheel because the producer sent me it, and it came out with San Diego FC, which are the brand new franchise. Opening weekend, they beat LA Galaxy. I think I've done quite well here, actually. They beat LA Galaxy, who are the champions, by 2-0. I actually saw them at the pre-season tournament a couple of weeks ago. They look good, crazy fans, Snapdragon Stadium. It's a beautiful place. I'm very happy with my pick. So, Jamie, somebody is going to hand you the wheel to spin it and tell us who you've got for season 25-26 or season 25.
Here we go. Yes. So
it's going to take a while.
Real Salt Lake.
Okay. Real Salt Lake in Utah. Okay, brilliant. Okay, that's Jamie's team. So we'll get you a shirt.
Rebecca, do I not just need to pick Portland Timbers with my brother managing them?
Not after they got beat 4-1.
Should we just do
come
that?
on. How can I?
Why don't we? Okay, let's just.
How can I?
Would be,
hang on, I've done it. I've spun it.
You've done it anyway.
I've spun it.
Okay.
Oh no, I can't have that.
Oh, was it?
New
Vancouver?
York City. I can't have New York City.
No, because they're basically Manchester City, so you can't do that. You definitely can't do that.
Exactly, I can't be given that.
All right, we're just going to give you.
I'm going to do it. Let me spin again.
Oh no, okay.
Let me spin again. Right, my first team's Portland Timbers, but my second team is the Colorado Rapids.
Okay, 0-0 draw at St. Louis City at the weekend. So you've had a decent start. I think I've had the best start. We will update this every week. Portland, Colorado Rapids, Salt Lake, and San Diego FC. Brilliant. Okay, just before we go, last final quick thing. You probably didn't see this, guys, but this is so bizarre. So the New York Yankees have reversed, have you seen this? A 49-year-old facial hair policy. So now they are saying that their players and staff can sport some well-groomed beards. Under previous regulations, though, the players' hair was not allowed to touch their collars, and although moustaches were allowed, beards were not allowed. But now they've reversed it a little bit. So I saw that and thought, you know what, Gary, we don't have to talk about your facial hair, but if you had a moment in your career under Fergie or there was a funny rule, Jamie, the same for you, have you ever had a restriction on you, a certain thing you had to do, anything weird like that?
He didn't like caps, particularly if we were in the eating room, and he certainly... If you remember, I think David Beckham tells a story in his book, he didn't quite like the mohawk either.
That's right. Okay, so no silly hairstyles. All right, Jamie, did anyone ever stop you from doing anything?
Scoring goals?
Not own goals.
I'm just trying to think now. No, I don't think in terms... I mean, look what Gary said, caps at dinner and different things like that. They were very... I remember Gerard Hewley coming in very big on everybody always being the same. You know, pre-season was a bit of a nightmare. Everyone had to wear the same T-shirt and shorts that day, and then the next day would be another... You know, that thing, he was very... on uniform, and you get a fine if someone had put the wrong pair of shorts on and stuff like that. So they were very big on that type of thing. Yeah.
Do you know we had to wear the club blazer, which is the old Busby Babes club blazer, and the red tie through every single airport and every single away game whilst I was at United. And if we went on, say for instance, a 14-hour journey on like say an Asia tour pre-season, we'd have to wear the suit through the airport, and then we'd have to take it off on the plane to put tracksuits on, and then put it back on before we got off at the other end. We always had to wear the club blazer when we were travelling through an airport, and he never once...
Can you imagine the faff of that? Oh,
yeah, that is massive palaver. That is.
Did you like that, Gary, or not like?
No,
it?
I mean there were times where I went to him and said, "Boss, is it okay if we travel in tracksuits?" Fucking now, son. You're representing Manchester United, walking through a bloody airport. Honestly, he wouldn't. He'd never ever. Was that good Scottish accent? That.
Yeah, that's I love that though.
But Rebecca, that suit is the reason why Gary met his wife, isn't it? I mean, that's... have you not heard that story, Rebecca?
After a game, after a game, I went out in a bar in Manchester and had my club blazer on, or as one of my teammates once said, it was my most likely pulling gear. I'm not sure I can say that on a podcast, but
yeah, you can. And Emma was just charmed.
On your own one, you can.
Yeah.
All right, chaps, that is it for this week's episode of It's Called Soccer. We are going to be back next Wednesday with a brand new episode. We're going to be joined by the long-time host of the game show Price is Right. Drew Carey is going to join us. So remember to subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Gary, Jamie, we'll see you next week.